Recently, the world held its breath when 10 Chinese warships encircled a U.S. naval formation. The South China Sea has never been this tense. Two superpowers now stare each other down on the ocean's edge, beneath a sky tinted with tropical haze. The South China Sea stretches like a vast chessboard of contested waters. It is one of Earth's most important arteries, a maritime crossroads carrying over $3.4 trillion in trade every year. Oil tankers, container giants, and naval fleets all pass through its narrow corridors, threading between coral reefs and rival flags. To China, these waters represent ancient heritage, a map of historic rights drawn across centuries. To the United States, they symbolize freedom of navigation and global order. Between them lies a growing archipelago of tension. Across the sea, satellite images show artificial islands bristling with radar domes and missile silos, transforming shallow reefs into forward bases. Each one is a silent claim. Each radar sweep sends a message. We are watching. For nearly a decade, warnings have rippled through diplomatic channels, yet neither side has turned away. Now, steel hulls glide where fishermen once sailed. The calm horizon hides two fleets, each refusing to blink first. It began as a drill, but it looked like war. In August, China's Southern Theater Command launched a simulation meant to test its ability to fight, repair, and recover under real pressure. Black smoke billowed over the docks as technicians rushed to rescue a damaged destroyer. Ships limped back from mock combat, their hulls patched, their engines roaring again within hours. Helicopters ferried wounded sailors to floating hospitals, while drones hovered overhead, relaying coordinates to command centers ashore. This wasn't a theater, it was a message. The operation, described by Chinese state media as a full-process emergency support exercise, aimed to prove that China could sustain war, not just win battles. Civilians joined soldiers in what Beijing called joint military-civilian readiness. Every detail rehearsed, every movement timed. The unspoken line was clear. If conflict came tomorrow, China would not need to pause to prepare. While China rehearsed repair, the United States rehearsed reach in April. The Pentagon quietly confirmed the deployment of the Typhoon mid-range missile system to northern Luzon, Philippines, just a few hundred miles from Chinese territory. For the first time, U.S. forces could target Chinese naval and land assets deep within the contested zone. The Typhoon, capable of launching SM-6 interceptors and Tomahawk cruise missiles, marked a turning point. Not of defense, but deterrence. Joint exercises with Japan, Australia, and the Philippines followed within weeks. To Washington, it was an integrated security posture. To Beijing, it looked like an encirclement. A 2024 Pentagon report noted that China's Southern Theater Command had been central in enforcing territorial claims. Now the U.S. had drawn its own circle, with alliances instead of islands and missiles instead of maps. The horizon, once defined by trade routes, had become a front line of strategy. At 4:30 hours, satellite tracking from the Pacific Command confirmed an unusual formation: 10 Chinese warships moving in a slow, deliberate arc toward a U.S. naval task group near the Spratly Islands. On sonar, the water hummed with layered echoes, destroyers, frigates, and amphibious craft fanning out in disciplined silence. On radar, it looked like choreography, a circle tightening wave by wave. For several tense minutes, there were no radio calls, just the faint crackle of static across encrypted frequencies and the rhythmic ping of sonar sweeping the abyss. Analysts, watching the feed, described it not as a confrontation, but as a message in motion. A calculated show of force, designed to test response times, not start a war. In Beijing's playbook, symbolism matters as much as strategy. 10 ships weren't random. They were 10 declarations. We are here, we are ready, we will not retreat. Each vessel represents a line drawn in water. 10 signals to the world that China is done being challenged in what it calls its blue national territory. The sea was calm, the tension was not. Timing is the heartbeat of strategy, and Beijing chose its moment with precision. Just weeks after launching the CNS Fujian, its most advanced aircraft carrier, symbolizing China's naval future, This maneuver served as a demonstration of both power and purpose. Analysts believe the decision wasn't spontaneous. It was a three-layered statement. First, to project dominance across contested waters and remind the world that China's maritime rise is irreversible. Second, to test American resolve, to see how far Washington's deterrence extends before hesitation begins. And third, to signal ASEAN nations that neutrality has consequences. Within China, the footage circulated on state media under stirring captions. The sea bows to strength. It wasn't only external messaging. It was internal reassurance, crafted for a domestic audience that equates stability with control. For the Communist Party, this wasn't provocation. It was performance, a carefully measured act of strategic theater. And through it, a message resonated across Asia's waters. We decide the rules here now. As Chinese warships tightened formation, the U.S. Navy's posture didn't change. No sudden maneuvers, no warning shots, only precision. Guided missile destroyers, USS Higgins and USS John Finn, adjusted bearings by fractions, maintaining radar lock overhead. P-8A, Poseidon aircraft traced silent arcs, transmitting live telemetry to command posts in Guam and Japan. Below the surface, a Virginia-class submarine mirrored the enemy's motion. Unseen, unheard, but always there. Every movement was synchronized through the Indo-Pacific Command's intelligence network, a lattice of radar, satellite, and sonar systems that turned silence into awareness. Washington's strategy here wasn't aggression, it was endurance, to occupy space without escalating it. Every American vessel carried the same doctrine: stay visible, stay composed, stay ready. In the war rooms of Honolulu, this wasn't just a standoff. It was a live rehearsal for deterrence. For the United States, the goal was not provocation, it was to remind that presence is power, and silence, when backed by strength, is its loudest expression. On paper, China had the numbers: 10 warships forming a steel wall across contested waters. But the U.S. held a network, a digital web of sensors, satellites, and advanced weapon systems that turned data into dominance. Every American destroyer carried the Aegis Combat System, a real-time nerve center linking sea, air, and space surveillance into one continuous feed. In its arsenal lay SM-6 missiles capable of striking airborne threats over 200 miles away, and Tomahawk cruise missiles engineered for surgical precision. Each command, each ping, synchronized across the fleet. Fast, efficient, almost instinctive. By contrast, China's new Type 055 destroyers rivaled Western designs in radar and missile range. But the coordination of 10 ships under live pressure was a fragile choreography. A single misread signal or misaligned bearing could turn formation into confusion. The proximity alone, a few nautical miles separating both forces, was enough to strain every radar lock and communication channel. It wasn't just a battle of hardware, it was a contest of discipline, where technology met nerves and machines waited for human judgment. Beyond steel and sonar, this was a contest of minds. Each commander studied the other's hesitation, tone, and timing. China's radar sweeps and coded radio pings weren't random. They were tests, probing the rhythm of U.S. reaction. How long would it take before the Americans shifted bearing, changed altitude, or broke radio silence? Meanwhile, U.S. analysts were recording and decoding every move of the Chinese fleet in real time: the spacing between ships, the direction of communication beams, and the order of maneuvering, all offered clues to how China's naval hierarchy thinks. This wasn't only a strategy, it was a psychological chess match played through antennas and periscopes. Each side is trying to read the other's hand without revealing its own. A silent dialogue written in radar waves. Tense, cerebral, and endlessly patient. As global headlines framed it as a confrontation, Beijing called it sovereignty. State media didn't show tension or risk. They showed confidence, precision, and calm. Anchors described the maneuvers as a routine defensive exercise, proof that the People's Liberation Army Navy stood ready to protect the nation's maritime borders and dignity. The Southern Theater Command issued its statement with deliberate weight. across the Pacific. Washington's message was equally measured but firm. No dramatics, no escalation, just policy anchored in law. Each U.S. patrol, from the USS Higgins to the USS John Finn, carried the same principle. Freedom of navigation will not be compromised. The Pentagon's official tone was one of strategic calm, steady presence, zero retreat. Every movement in those waters was part of a larger pattern to remind the world that international law still stands, even when challenged by might. In a statement that rippled through diplomatic circles, a Pentagon spokesperson reaffirmed, "We will operate anywhere international law allows." It wasn't bluster, it was doctrine. Washington's counter to Beijing's narrative wasn't aggression, it was continuity. A promise that oceans, no matter how contested, remain in the commons of the world, not possessions of power. Financial analysts in London and Singapore called it the Indo-Pacific's ticking bomb. One skirmish could send oil prices surging, stock exchanges trembling, and trade routes rerouted overnight. Diplomats spoke carefully, but investors moved quickly, hedging, selling, recalculating risk. Because in an interconnected world, a radar lock in the South China Sea can echo on Wall Street, and beneath every headline of freedom of navigation lies an unspoken truth. Peace here isn't just about power, it's about economic survival. While the South China Sea boiled with tension, another mystery unfolded thousands of miles away. At 380 nautical miles southwest of Acapulco, the USS Samson, a guided missile destroyer, picked up a blip on its radar. The contact was fast, erratic, and close. Commander James Harding acted instantly. He ordered the launch of an MH-60R Seahawk helicopter for reconnaissance. The cameras rolled. The sea was calm, the sky unbroken. But the radar feed told another story. The unidentified contact maneuvered like no vessel on record, accelerating, then vanishing from radar before reappearing moments later. Harding's crew classified it as a potential hostile drone or experimental vessel. Within minutes, defensive systems are armed. A brief, tense exchange of flares and signals followed, then silence. Moments later, a distant plume rose over the Pacific. The destruction of an unidentified craft, later valued at $58 million. Official reports remain classified, but the timing didn't go unnoticed. Beijing's analysts took note, not of what was destroyed, but of how quickly the U.S. responded. To them, it was proof that America's vigilance is global, and that every U.S. move, even oceans away, now falls under China's watchful microscope. This confrontation offered no victor. Only revelation: China commands numbers. The U.S. commands networks. One side believes dominance ensures peace. The other believes stability sustains order. What unfolded was not war, but a mirror of modern power, where perception can outweigh firepower. Each maneuver was a message, each silence a test. Analysts summed it up bluntly. Neither side wants war, but both need to look strong. It's the paradox of deterrence. Strength prevents conflict, but the pursuit of it invites risk. And as each nation sharpens its image for allies and adversaries alike, diplomacy struggles to keep pace. For now, restraint is a strategy. But history warns, restraint has limits. The South China Sea, once just a map of trade routes, has become the stage where great powers measure resolve. And every wave that passes carries the weight of calculation. The horizon ahead divides opinion. Some foresee a Cold War-style standoff, where fleets shadow each other in endless circles, aggression contained by discipline. Others warn of an accidental clash, a flare, a collision, a misheard command, igniting chaos neither side intended. There's also a quieter possibility: diplomacy evolving under pressure. A new set of naval conduct rules, perhaps, or an expanded Indo-Pacific alliance, where Japan, Australia, India, and the U.S. act in measured balance against China's reach. Yet the more militarized the sea becomes, the harder peace feels to maintain. Artificial islands turn into fortresses, patrols become habits, and the new normal begins to look like perpetual confrontation. The question isn't who wins the next encounter, it's whether either side remembers what losing would mean. Because in the South China Sea, one mistake doesn't stay local, it ripples across the world. As US and Chinese warships circle the same waters, the world watches in silence. One wrong move could reshape history. The South China Sea isn't just another map. It's the front line of global power. Stay tuned as the rivalry waves higher than ever.